the authority of the Council, I shall now confer the degree of Doctor of the University. I call upon the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Roy Webb, to make this presentation.
Chancellor, the Council of the University has resolved to award the degree of Doctor of the University to Mr. Frank Moorhouse, A.O. Frank Thomas Moorhouse was born in Nowra, New South Wales in December 1938. After attending the Wollongong Technical School and matriculating from the Nowra High School, he commenced work as a cadet journalist with the Sydney Daily Telegraph. He later worked as a journalist with the Wagga Wagga Advertiser and the Riverina Express, and as editor of the Lockhart Review. After working for a time as an administrator of the Workers' Education Association, Frank Moorhouse resumed his journalistic career in 1966, beginning a new weekly newspaper, City Voices. The venture was short-lived and he soon joined the ABC News Service as a general reporter. During this time he became involved with the alternative libertarian political movement in Sydney. The movement began an underground newspaper called Four, in which Frank Moorhouse wrote his own column Around the Laundromat, which was later picked up by the Bulletin. In the late 1960s, Frank Moorhouse left journalism to work as a full-time writer of fiction, publishing his first book, Futility and Other Animals, in 1969. A feature of this book and several of his later works is their innovative, discontinuous narrative style. Although creating a distinctive tension between fragmentation and connection, the discontinuous narrative style has brought unity to the author's body of work as characters reappear through his stories. From 1973 to 1975, Frank Moorhouse was founder and co-editor of Tabloid Story, in association with Michael Wilding, Brian Kiernan and Carmel Kelly. A short story magazine, Tabloid Story, was a courageous and groundbreaking initiative, publishing experimental writing in a time of inflexible censorship laws. The publication of his second book, The American's Baby, in 1972, established his reputation as a leading exponent of short fiction in Australia. Regarded by some as provocative and radical in its exploration of human sexuality, Frank Moorhouse has consistently challenged his audience. His later works have included The Electrical Experience, 1974, Conferenceville, 1976, Tales of Mystery and Romance, 1977, The Everlasting Secret Family and Other Secrets, 1980, Room Service, 1985, 4017, 1988, Late Shows, 1990, and Loose Living, 1995. In 1994, he released his novel, Grand Days. Frank Moorhouse is one of the first writers to acknowledge the urban dimension of Australian life. His contact with Sydney's libertarian community prepared him, and the narrators of his stories were a constant questioning of attitudes and absolutes. His body of work stands out as an intelligent, humorous and sensitive representation of the wide range of Australian society. Reflecting on his work and life, Frank Moorhouse has commented, "The thing which has grown stronger in me is the belief in the pleasures and terribly complex and wondrous nature of storytelling. I think storytelling is what we do best as a culture and as a species." An acute observer of Australian society, Frank Moorhouse has also scripted works for Australian television and radio, including the film scripts Between Wars, 1973, and The Coca-Cola Kid, 1985. He has been a contributor to numerous magazines and journals, including The Bulletin, The National Times, Southerly, Meandrin, and The London Independent. An anthology of his journalism entitled Days of Wine and Rage was released in 1980. His many awards include the Henry Lawson Short Story Prize, the National Book Council Award, the Braille Book of the Year, the Age Book of the Year, the Australian Literature Society Gold Medal, and the South Australian Premier's Award for Fiction. In 1986, he was the first fiction writer to be awarded the Australian National Library's Sir Harold White Fellowship. In 1994, he was awarded a fellowship to the Woodrow Wilson Centre in Washington and a Senior Fulbright Fellowship. As well as being passionate about his writing, Frank Moorhouse has also campaigned strongly for the welfare of writers in Australia. He was an active member of the Australian Journalists Association, President of the Australian Society of Authors, and a founder of the Copyright Agency Limited, a company set up to ensure that authors received compensation for the use of their work. In 1985, Frank Moorhouse was made a member of the Order of Australia for services to literature. He is one of Australia's premier writers whose work has made a distinctive contribution to Australia's national identity. It is especially fitting that the Council of Griffith University should honour Frank Moorhouse in recognition of his distinguished contributions to literature. Chancellor, it is with great pleasure that I present to you Frank Thomas Moorhouse for admission to the degree of Doctor of the University.
Frank Moorhouse, AO, Doctor of the University, to deliver the occasional address.
Chancellor McCrossen, Vice-Chancellor, staff and faculty, distinguished guests, graduating students, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honour indeed to be made a Doctor of Griffith University, and a double honour to be asked to give this occasional address. This is one of the most memorable days of my life, and I thank the University and I thank you for coming. As you heard in the Chancellor's address, I am a writer of fiction, a writer of books. I thought that I would today talk, therefore, about the strange nature of this vocation of full-time writer of fiction, the making up of stories. When I first heard of the intention of the University to grant this doctorate, I thought it must be that I had been nominated by the Faculty of Hotel Management for my book Room Service, which is a book of travel writing set very much in hotels. I hope it's a text in the department. As many of you would know, book writers in the last year or so have had something of a bad press. Authors have turned out to be someone other than they said they were. Some have claimed to be Ukrainian when they weren't Ukrainian, to have known firsthand from their family about the Holocaust when they didn't. Some non-Aboriginal writers have claimed to be Aboriginal. And we've had, consequently, a series of what could be called literary scandals, which have, I think, done some damage to the image of the publishing industry and perhaps to the idea of the vocation of writing, even though at times they seemed rather comic when they were occurring, and I'm sure they were rather comic for many of the readers out there in the world of books. The Demedenko affair, which I think is probably the best known, has now generated two books on that subject alone, the subject of the hoax or the scandal. It's a case which is known throughout the world, and wherever authors travel, Australian authors travel now internationally, they have to bear a cross-examination about the nature of this strange scandal. Of course, today I hope in some ways to defend the values of this vocation of writing, but I feel that I should, in all decency, confront some of the embarrassments and the failings, initially anyway, the failings of this vocation, the failing of the publishing and book industry. I think that the industry has been seriously embarrassed. There have been other cases too, which you may have come across. There's a woman who claimed to have been autistic and is now challenged, and wrote a book which became an international bestseller here in Australia. She was living here in Australia. And this has caused her to be challenged by people who knew her closely. If the publishers can't guarantee, therefore, the authenticity of their author, it seems to me they are not only fools, but they are engaged in rather shoddy trading, because the authors have a contract, if you like, with the readers to convey and carry certain sorts of authentic experience across to the readership, and the publishers are there to guarantee it. The establishment of the authenticity of the source or of the author is not that easy, believe me. As we have seen dramatically in Australia, authors apply their imaginations not only to their works, but to their self-image. And when one looks at one's CV and certain statements one has made over the years about oneself, I think we all tend to be able to exaggerate and apply our imagination to our self-image. There is a very thin line, I think, sometimes between psychosis, happy fantasy, self-aggrandizement, legend, publicity, and fraud. And some of these authors have walked those lines. There is a great case a great example in literature. William Faulkner, a Nobel Prize winner, throughout his life, and quite harmlessly it seems to me, passed himself off as a former fighter pilot in World War I, and this found its way even into his official biography. He was in fact an aircraft mechanic during World War I and never left the United States. But it's true that literature and the writing of books is not merely show business, which is one of the attempts to defend some of these hoaxes and some of these scandals. There has been an attempt to defend it as, say, it's just show business. We all pretend to be something we're not at times. But I don't think this show business posture suits literature or publishing. There's a nice example I came across while preparing this talk. There was a film star, Francis Farmer, who, in a film called Francis, you may have seen, was played by Jessica Lange. In this film, Francis Farmer, the actress's advisor, says to her, "Come on, you have to lie about yourself." And Francis says, why? And the advisor says, "Everybody lies in show business." And then Francis replies, "Not everybody, not me. But you're a movie star now," he says. And in some ways, authors are caught up in this sort of razzmatazz, and there are publicity departments that sometimes suggest we make a good story out of our life. By the way, Francis Farmer, the actress, ended up in an asylum for trying to live truthfully as a film star. I think the publishing industry has to regain lost ground here. One of the, I think, beautiful things about good books and good publishers is that they are, in many ways, a source of, in a world flooded with media and stuff, with information and data, a source of authenticity. They have been a source of reliability. The books are generally tested well before they're published, even though you may doubt that. They go to other readers before they are compared with the internet, say, and computer forms of computer transmitted data, the book is relatively tamper-proof and has the other great advantage of being tested in the public place through reviewing. So, in acknowledging one of the failings of Australian publishing in the last couple of years, I can only urge publishers to return to some of the strictly more rigorous procedures which ensure books are what they should be. My brother, who is a non-reader of books, despite the fact that he has an author brother, he believes the Dema-Decker affair was orchestrated by the publisher. He believes it was all a set-up job. That shows how sadly the publishing world is viewed at present. To a lighter, perhaps, criticism of the publishing industry, I came across an anecdote told by John Gregory Dunn, an American writer, in a book he's just published. And for me, it points up many things. In this anecdote, Dunn says it's set in the United States, and Dunn has just finished a script called Up Close and Personal, a film you should probably seen up here. Dunn says that late one evening at a back table in Ladone, a sunset script restaurant much favoured by the industry, the film industry, a producer friend of ours and his screenwriter, a best-selling novelist, argued vigorously against the changes that Disney, that's Disney, the production company, was demanding in a picture. The president of this Disney division was overseeing the picture and was paying for the dinner, and he suddenly demanded silence. And in the silence that ensued, the Disney president reached under the table, pretended to unlock a cage and to take out a small, savage animal. And clutching the creature by his neck, he exhibited it to the people around the table, and he asked the screenwriter if he saw the monster. And the writer, not knowing what else to do, nodded. Touching the creature by the neck, this Disney executive reached under the table, put it back in its cage, pretended to lock it up. He said, "I put it," and the executive then turned to him and said, "I put it back in the cage. I never want you to force me to bring it out again." And then he said to him, "Do you know what that monster was?" And the writer shook his head and the other shook their head. The executive leaned over and said, "The monster is named Our Money. We are putting the money into this film. What we say goes." That animal is found in every country and it's called Our Money. But when I first, I was amused by this anecdote, but I pointed out to me something that is deficient, I think, again in our books and in our films. And it's a traditional tension between the money people and the arts, and the commercial people and the arts. Here I want to speak up for the graduates of the Faculty of Commerce and Administration here today, because I think you've been, as a vocation, very badly served by Australian and by writers throughout the world, and by the film writers as well, and the arts generally. There's been an attitude around which is very common that the investors, the money people, the people who wear suits, the accountants, the private sector, communists, are all enemies of the arts, and that these people are the monster that came out of the cage. For some, this sort of attitude comes out of deep frustrations which some writers and filmmakers have had during their economic life, and it's always been a struggle in the arts. And there are ideological habits and ideological positions here. But what it ignores, I think, is that all the vital films, television, books and art generated in the last, say, 100 years has come from this world, this mixed market economy, this free enterprise community. And most of the things that we admire have been generated out of the system that the arts feels so antagonistic towards. So then we must be doing something right to produce this rich culture. And I think that in many ways books are to a degree deformed at present and writing deformed because it has not creatively reached into the world of commerce, the world of administration, and even the world of politics. There is an imagination deficit, if you like, in our portrayal of business people, of administrators, and of politicians. Yes, Minister, and yes, Prime Minister, those wonderful programs which I enjoy, tend to be the end of the stereotype. That is, tends to be as far as we are able to reach into the world of politics. Michael Douglas in the film Greed perhaps symbolises all that's bad about the market economy. And I relish some of these images and some of these stories, but there is more to be said, and it's not being said. To say something positive about my vocation, I wanted just to conclude by pointing out or giving an answer to a question put to me by a cab driver not so long ago. He said that all these books are written, and I don't read them, he said, and you talk about, you're a writer, and what is this about serious literature that matters? How does it work? Why is it valuable? It's a very difficult question to answer. We somehow, as an act of faith, have a belief that it must matter even if we don't read the books, and I think, in matter of fact, it does. The standard answer is that if we don't read the books, if my brother doesn't read the books, he is still influenced by these books because journalists, teachers, lawyers, judges, politicians do read the books. People do out there in positions who are in positions which form the society around us do read them. And I came across a wonderful example that made this transparent. It was an analysis of a book called Black Lamb and Grey Falcon, written by Rebecca West in 1941. And it was looking at how this book had, back in 1941, it had been all right. It had been a useful book and much admired. But now that the Yugoslavian situation has blown up again, journalists going to that region reread that book, and this book, this article, this analysis, identified the fact that nearly every serious book written about the crisis in Yugoslavia has mentioned or has been dedicated to Rebecca West and her book. 3 of the current crop of books on Yugoslavia draw on that book quite heavily. And Robert Kaplan's book, Balkan Ghost, A Journey Through History, draws very significantly on that book. And Kaplan himself said, I would rather have lost my passport and my money than my heavily thumbed and annotated copy of Black Lamb and Grey Falcon, a book, by the way, which I haven't read. However, that book and Kaplan's book was read by President Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Colin Powell, then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and became the basis of moving America into intervening in the Balkan crisis and formulating a policy of intervention and going in to stop that carnage. And it was a wonderful analysis that made visible the way books move in our society and the way they go on moving many years after they've been published, and their influence continues. And this is going on in a thousand ways in our society. The literary mission, if you like, and I'll conclude now, was stated by, I think, by 2 people that I want to quote. Lionel Trilling, an American critic. He said the function of literature and literary writing and all art was to liberate the individual from the tyranny of this culture, to permit him to stand beyond it in an autonomy of perception and judgment. That is, when we are engaged by a book or by a work of art that's significant, it helps us to stand aside momentarily from our work, our family, and ourselves, and to see clearly. It gives us insight. There is another quote, and this is by Wordsworth, another example, I think, of what I would call the literary mission or the purpose of art and good writing. He said, The writer has the task of doing well what is worthy to be done and what was never done before, widening the sphere of human sensibility for delight, honour and benefit to produce effects hitherto unknown. And as I was writing that quotation from Wordsworth, I thought maybe that applies to more people than writers. It could apply, I think, to those who graduated today, for instance. It's a good mission statement, I think, for a young graduate to produce effects hitherto unknown to delight, honour and benefit. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you